I've been using the NISI Athenas consistently on a variety of projects for the last year, and these lenses haven't just improved my work, but they've actually pushed my creativity to another level. That's because they have the 4 most important things you need to look for in a high quality lens set. So what are those 4 things, and ultimately, will I buy a set for myself? Also, a quick disclosure, I do not own these lenses and I do not get to keep them. I'm actually renting them from a rental house in Canada known as Enlarge Vision. And you can actually see the barcode for the rental house right here on the lens. But at the end of this video, I will tell you if I decided to buy a set of these lenses for myself. And if you want to learn more about these lenses, I'll leave a link down to Enlarge Vision's website in the description down below. Now, if you're new to the NISI lenses, they come in a pretty large variety of focal lengths. You've got the 14, 18, which I'm shooting on right now, the 25, 35, 40, 50, 85, and 135. You can buy them as a set of 8 lenses or each lens separately. And they also come in a standard kit of 14, 25, 35, 50, and 85. And you can buy a smaller kit of the 18, 40, and 135. The lenses are actually really small and lightweight, and I will do a deep dive into the build quality and ergonomics of them later on because there's a lot to say. But one thing you should know is that they do cover a 46mm image circle, which goes beyond full frame all the way to the Fuji GFX medium format cameras, with the exception of the 14mm, which does vignette beyond full frame. And because these lenses work for so many different types of cameras, it's no surprise that they also come in a large variety of mounts. You've got PL, Canon RF, Sony E mount, and the oodles of cameras that use the Leica L mount, and you even have the Fuji GFX G mount for the medium format cameras. Sadly, there's no Z mount for the Nikon cameras, but I hope they add it in the future. Now, the reason that I love the NISI Athena primes and I've been using them consistently over the last year really comes down to performance and character. And I've heard a lot of people say, oh, these lenses don't have character, they're too neutral, too clean, too sharp. But none of that means they lack character. If you don't think these lenses have character, you're nuts. I actually think a lot of what people say they want in their lenses is actually present in the NISI Athena primes, and they have better lens performance than the competition. So let's break down and dispel some of the misconceptions around these lenses. First up, these lenses are very sharp and maintain critical focus really well. And I know a lot of you guys don't want sharp lenses, but hear me out first. Most lenses are their sharpest at f4, but once you start to open up, most lenses fall apart, have soft edges, color fringing, and usually they look kind of out of focus. However, the NISI Athenas are sharp corner to corner at f4, and if you open up to f1.9, they still maintain critical sharpness with only a small hit to image quality. And comparing f4 to f1.9, there's not a huge quality drop off like you see on most budget lenses. And there's also not much color fringing in this set except for a slight hint on the 25 and 35, but it's so minor that as a consumer, I A, don't notice it, but B, even if I could pay slightly more to have it fixed, I wouldn't. And almost the entire set can go to f1.9 with the exception of the 14, which is at f2.4, the 135 and 18 are f2.2. But these are actual usable maximum f-stops. It's not f2.2, but it's kind of soft and mushy and you wouldn't really use it. You can actually shoot f2.2. In fact, I'm shooting this video right now on the 18mm at f2.2, and it looks pretty good. It's not soft, the image isn't falling apart. I actually love these lenses because I can actually shoot on these wide open f-stops. And I will say, realistically, it's so rare to shoot at f1.9. Most narratives and commercials are f2.8 for interiors and maybe like a 5 or a 6 for exteriors. But I tend to shoot a lot of abstract music videos and fashion commercials, and being able to shoot wide open helps me get more of that dreamy, almost ethereal feel to my images. And I also like shooting in low light a lot, so I appreciate how fast these lenses are. And also, one thing that I don't think a lot of people mention when talking about these lenses, if I can use a usable T2.2, it means I can also use smaller and cheaper lighting. So these lenses in some cases have actually saved me money. And overall, it's nice to just know I have a set of lenses that I can use any way I want without worrying about the technical limitations, and it gives me more headspace on set to just think about the actual work. Now, we started this conversation off with the fact that most people think these lenses are too sharp, and instead they want a soft vintage feel. Well, most of the footage that you guys have seen so far probably doesn't look overly sharp. It probably does look soft and vintage-like to you. And that's because NISI knows what people want, and they, for the most part, have figured out all the solutions for this. NISI makes really great front-end filtration in both 4x5 and screw-on, and lens filters is actually what NISI is known for, so you can make your lenses look softer without degrading the core quality of the lenses. But the answer to this problem that I actually prefer is if you check out the NISI RF, E-mount, L-mount, or G-mount lenses, they actually have the option to add rear end diffusion elements, and you also have an option for variable ND that you can add to the back of these lenses. So you could get your entire set to look softer and have more character. And in my opinion, using filtration to get a softer look is a way better way to do it, because this way you can consciously choose the softness and the look of the lenses every single time you're shooting a different project rather than just having it baked in. Also, side note, NISI realized that a lot of people wanted these lenses to be softer and weren't thinking about filtration. So I think they just got tired of arguing, and they actually made something called the NISI Athena Tuned. They actually give you all the character, all the softness baked right into these lenses without hurting performance. Originally, there were only 200 sets of these in the world, but people really love them, and now you can buy them pretty easily. So if you want that look, check those lenses out as well. But they are an extra $1,000. And if you want the hookup, check out Enlarge Vision in the link down below. They are a distributor for these lenses, so if you want a set of the Tuned or these NISI Athena Primes, they should be able to get you one pretty quickly. Okay, so by now, I hope I've convinced you that these lenses aren't too sharp or clinical, and you can really dress them up to have the kind of character you want. So let's talk about my favorite thing in these lenses, and something that everyone wants in their lenses but may not know about it, and that is micro contrast. Now, micro contrast is a term that's not often properly explained. The academic definition is a lens's ability to maintain strong tonal variations relative to the adjacent areas and colors of the image. Don't worry, I fell asleep there too. Here's what it actually means in terms of the results it produces, and it does this in two folds. First, the colors are much more vibrant and rich right in camera. All of the footage that you're seeing right now has not been color graded. This is straight from the camera, and it looks really good. And it's not just that the saturation gets boosted with these lenses, but you actually have a denser and richer color. And the Athenas can maintain small changes in colors much better. So you're able to capture colors at a higher fidelity and more true to life. And when it comes to color grading, it's way easier to dial in that perfect color. And when you do need to boost your colors, the changes can be much more subtle because they're already so rich in camera. And across the set, the colors are also very neutral and true to life, so they're not going to cool down or warm up your image without you asking for it. And the second effect of the micro contrast control on your image is that the transition between contrasty bright and dark areas is much smoother. Highlights have a soft bloom rather than a harsh cut, and shadows feel a lot more open and have a little bit of a lower contrast to them. And a lot of people actually get filters to achieve this look, but the NISI Athenas can do this naturally. So if you do add a filter to it, it only enhances the look. And the lenses also have a very beautiful and controlled flare. When exposed to direct light, it does not wash out your image or ruin your contrast. It's a really good looking flare. And skin tends to have a much more organic gradient across the face because you're able to capture all the subtle tones and pigment shifts inside the skin, because your skin is mostly water, it's reflective as well. So if you really want to capture skin properly and make it look good, these lenses make your job a lot easier. Now, when you look at the micro contrast performance and what it actually does for your image, you might notice something. A lot of what micro contrast does is actually what people look for in their vintage lenses. And that's because you can actually get most of what you want from a vintage lens in the NISI Athena Primes. So if you say these lenses don't have character, you're nuts, respectfully. Next up, let's talk about the really important stuff that goes beyond the surface level of the look of the lenses. Let's talk about the things that are going to matter when you're on set actually shooting with them. Let's start off with focus, more specifically the minimum focus, because the minimum focus on these lenses is ridiculous. It's basically macro level, and they're zero, and I mean zero focus breathing. On the wide lenses, you've got 25 centimeters or 9 inches on the 14 millimeter for minimum focus, 30 centimeters or 11 inches on the 25 and 35 millimeter lenses. And on the telephoto side, you have 50 centimeters or 19 inches on the 50 millimeter or 80 centimeters and 30 inches on the 85mm. But if that isn't close enough for you, you also have the NISI close-up lens kit, which is actually a screw-on diopter to the front of your lens, and this will let you get about 10 centimeters closer on every single lens. Two really important things is that the front diameter for all of the lenses is 80mm, which is pretty typical for most matte boxes, and the screw-on thread size is 77mm. And even the 14mm can actually fit a filter on the front, which is really rare for a lens like this because the front element actually comes out, but you do have gaps on the side that you'll have to cover up with tape. Now, a lot of cinematographers that I know really love getting up close and intimate with their subject matter, and close focus is a big reason that I think a lot of DPs are going to really dig this set. And when you get up really close, you also notice the focus fall off on these lenses is so soft and rolls off so nicely. It looks super organic, and it honestly looks like a high-end lens. On top of that, the bokeh. Now, I personally don't think anybody ever sits there and goes, wow, look at the bokeh. Oh no, there's like a little bit of cutting and onion skinning on that bokeh ball. Nobody ever cares. But if a bokeh is ugly, people definitely notice. And with the NISIs, you get this really soft, creamy, like dreamy and ethereal bokeh. I do not have words to explain it. And because I'm shooting a lot of my images at actually f1.9, I'm getting all the bokeh in the world, and I love how soft and creamy that background is. Now, it wouldn't be fair if I did not point out the issues with these lenses as well. When it comes to the bokeh balls at f1.9, there is a little bit of cutting, so the bokeh balls are not perfectly round. But at f2.8, they're perfectly round, very beautiful bokeh balls. Small note, but had to mention it. Now, let's talk about the physical design of these lenses because wow, I'm so impressed by how small these lenses are. And they're also not very heavy. Each lens is only about 790-ish grams, with the exception of the 135, which I believe in film is called a chunky boy. This is significantly bigger than the rest of the set, but that's also pretty typical to have your telephoto lens be bigger than the rest of the set. The build quality is top notch. Usually with affordable cinema lenses, the metal and plastic is usually very cheap, but there's honestly nothing cheap about these lenses. Really well made, they're aluminum, which is why they're light, but they're also very tough. And the stellar build quality allows them to not only be privately owned, but they're also really great rental items. These things will stand the test of time. Okay, maybe not the test of time, but definitely a decade of shooting. Also, they have these really nice front caps that are actually metal, and they have felt inside of them, so when you put them on, it goes on really nicely. Comes off really nicely. Well made. And all the lenses have a 300-degree focus rotation. Generally, most lenses in this price bracket have anywhere between 180 to 200 degrees of focus rotation, and 300 is a big step up. This way, you can be a lot more precise with your focus pulls and make fewer mistakes because you have more room to play around with on the physical lens itself. So whether you're using a manual follow focus or an electronic follow focus, this is going to make the life of your focus puller a lot easier. And another thing to note is that when you're changing focus, the weight inside does not shift forward or backwards and the center of gravity stays neutral. And because the NISI Athenas are the exact same size, the focus ring and the aperture rings are in the exact same place. So you can actually swap out your lenses and keep your focus motors in the exact same place. And this makes working with a gimbal or a rig setup a lot easier when changing lenses. And being able to hot swap your lenses is super important, not just on a professional set, but also on smaller sets, because the faster you can work, the more you can actually shoot. So ultimately, will I personally buy a set of these lenses because these are rentals, and should you consider a set of these lenses for your next project or to own? For me, it really comes down to price and value, because at the end of the day, it's the film business, not the film hobby. So if I buy a set of these lenses and they're fairly affordable for what they are, it's really easy to get a second set of these lenses as my production company grows if we have multiple units on a job. Knowing that I can expand my kit without breaking the bank is a huge plus. When I look at the cost of the NISI Athenas versus the competition, there's a pretty big difference. Each NISI Athena lens is only going to cost me about $1,000 USD or $1,500 Canadian. And when I look at the closest competition, the Sigma Primes, I'm going to pay about $5,000 per lens. And if I look at the high end for the RE Primes, I'm paying about $27,000 to $36,000. So when I consider the price to value for the NISI Athenas, it's a pretty great deal. And if you own these lenses and you want to rent them out, you can charge anywhere between $250 to $350 depending on your city, but you can make back your money pretty easily. And if you're thinking about renting these lenses, you can also rent them at a pretty affordable rate. So when I look at the price of the Nisi Athenas versus the value that I'm getting, in the budget category, I think these are the best lenses for your money. And if you want to learn more about these lenses or pick up a set for yourself, check out Enlarge Vision in the link down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.